Don't rejoice in the gifts and the miracles that you can do. Rejoice in the fact that your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life.
Yeah.
That's the greatest miracle, right? To go from spiritually dead to spiritually alive. Every time someone becomes a new believer, that's the greatest miracle. That's the greatest gift that God can give everybody. Oh, Zach's on it.
10:20 says, but don't rejoice because evil spirits obey you. Rejoice because your names are registered in heaven.
Look at you. You got my back. Love it. Awesome. Do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you. Okay, so if you're casting out demons, if you're doing all these signs and wonders, don't rejoice in that. Rejoice in the fact that you are a child of God. That's what we take heart in. That's where we take our authority. That's where we take our identity. That's where we take our confidence. That's where we take our ability. That's where we put our faith in Him, not in the other things that we get. Not the perks of the job, but the job itself, right? There was a friend of ours that wrote a song that was a prayer. It said, help me to seek the blesser and not to seek the blessing. Because if you seek Him, His kingdom and His righteousness, everything else will be added unto you. Does that make sense? So you can walk in truth and in power and in the gifts as they flow from the Holy Spirit. Okay? So I wanted to make sure that we have that kind of pinned down. The warning that your gifts aren't what you seek. The warning that you don't get stamped by approval because you can perform gifts or you have the gifts. And the fact that people can operate in the gifts without following Jesus. Okay?
And yet, hold that in balance with, we're told to seek the gifts.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
So there's this balance, but if you have things in order, where it's you and God first, then what's going to naturally flow from that is amazing things, right?
Yeah. I grew up in the most conservative Baptist Pentecostal church you'll ever know. I grew up, right? I grew up at a Foursquare church, which is a Pentecostal charismatic church, and the particular gathering of people that I had said, yeah, those are great, but never taught on them, never talked about them, believed them, but never talked about them, never did anything. It wasn't until I went to some retreat camp with the denomination that I was like, you can stand in the front and lift your hands? You can worship like that? I thought pockets were the way to get to Jesus, right? And so that blew my mind. Just the fact that people are standing in worship blew my mind. That should tell you how conservative my Pentecostal upbringing was, okay? But then I learned a ton about the gifts and all kinds of stuff. So that was my experience.
So I grew up in a cult, and I mentioned that before. And so mine had,
It was a Christian cult.
It was a Christian cult.
It wasn't a pagan cult. It was a Christian
cult.
cult.
That's true. So mine
Not that that's any better, just to give context.
I had one of those imbalanced situations where they say that prophecy is for today, but only one person had that gift, and that person's dead now, so now it's not for today anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for all intents and purposes, it was basically, lots of not expressive anything, whether it was worship or just, believing that miracles could happen or things like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I had I got to become like a little baby when I found the Lord, and I had a lot of learning to do. So it was good.